demo day. I think Alex is going to get us started with some updates on some of our production board work. And then Andrew and I will give some updates on some of the .NET client fixes that we've been working on here recently. So Alex, we'll send it over to you.
All righty. So yeah, I'm gonna go over some production board changes that were made, and this is kind of more so even to highlight for particularly like the integration teams that this is some new functionality that's supported by lookup tables in general as well. So you know, anywhere any systems are using lookup tables to provide custom data table results, you can now add similar features, however you define on the back end. And so in this case, this is the production board, and we've added, as you can see, there's different color highlighting. And so based on what shift is used, or which shift this line item falls on, whether AM or PM or both, you're going to see different text colors. So we've got, if it's multiple shifts, we can scroll over. If you got multiple shifts, it's just going to be the normal text color. If it's PM, it's going to be this green. If it's AM, it's blue. You know, these are kind of in progress colors. So, you know, there's definitely some adjustments that can be made. And then likewise, on these statuses, you know, if there's depending on what the status is here, it'll actually affect what the color highlighting is here. So, you know, most of these are green if they're C, but you know, we've got this one that's S, and this is highlighting orange to indicate that, you know, something more is going on here. And so this is governed by WO control to determine some of these. Well, all of the highlighting really. So you can customize this as you want on the back end. But yeah, the power behind this is that this applies to lookup data tables in general. So we do allow usage of that in production for the work order data table. There's some various places in point of sale and elsewhere where, you know, maybe an orders table, if you want to change that, you can highlight things differently now going forward. So it's a pretty cool feature that I think is going to have a lot of use cases going forward elsewhere.
All right. Thank you, Alex. And let me share my screen and we will jump into some .NET updates. Okay, so let me run down the list here. So several of these are in pre-release versions that are still being validated and tested before they are released as general updates. So these are not in 2.4.0, which was the last production release. So some of this functionality is coming soon. The first thing I'll show, this is sort of I don't want to say Band-Aid, but this is an approach that we're taking to warn users prior to resource exhaustion. We've had some issues with some of the resource utilization of the application, and depending on how many windows you have open and how many tabs you've activated, there are situations where users have run into the issue of the client crashing. So what we've done is we've added a check where if you have several forms activated and you're kind of flirting with that resource limit, when you open the next form, once that threshold has been reached, you'll now receive this warning indicating that resource usage is high and suggesting that you save windows or close forms that you're not using. So then if we go, and it will go ahead and launch the form that you were attempting to launch if you just click OK. So then if we go and we close a few of these custom query windows that I have open here, and then we launch something else, we will no longer get that warning. So just sort of a safety check there to try to keep users from running into a situation where the client will crash. We are still working on a more permanent solution there. So hopefully that the need to show that warning goes away here in the near future, but it's there for the moment. So let me log to another account here. I can type. Well, there's an example of a new situation. So I mistyped the command, and that used to, in previous versions, would just display an error on the command window, which left the client in sort of an interesting state where the user may not have known that they typed something wrong, and they're just sort of hung up there. So now we capture that and more reasonably present an error to the user so they know they typed something wrong. So if you just type a command wrong, you now get a warning about it rather than it popping up in the command prompt. Okay, so another feature that's been added is automatic exception submission. So in 2.3.0, I believe we introduced the notion of some more robust exception handling, where when the client is crashing because something wrong occurred, we were presenting the user with a dialog and indicating that the details of that exception had been logged to a file, and then suggesting to them that they forward us those details. Well, that was, putting a lot on the customer to ask them to forward that. So we've added this feature that's toggleable, where when an exception occurs, it will just automatically submit it to us. So if that is checked and we cause an exception, which we're going to go into one that's just a test case at the moment. So when an exception occurs, you will now receive a warning, and if that checkbox is enabled, it will indicate that it's been submitted to Rover Support. If that checkbox is disabled, then the old dialog will display that still indicates that the details have been logged to a file and suggests that they should be passed along to us. We wanted to make that toggleable, so if a customer didn't want to have them automatically submitted, they had the option. So the details of that exception have now been forwarded along to us. And that was an example of one where that exception was actually a host side exception. Could have been a file failed to open, or there was an issue with the host side program. So previously, those would again leave the client in just an unknown state. It would hang, no indication that something had happened. So now we capture those and display that error message. Let me get log back in here. Okay, so we've covered host side exceptions and command typos. Another change that, oh, Vern, have a question?
Yeah, will that toggle, will the default be that it's checked?
Yes, it is checked by default. You have to uncheck it if you don't want to submit errors.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Like
Okay.
Greg mentioned too, the fallback is to write it out to disk, which also serves for scenarios where they don't have a connection to the internet, right? For it to submit to us in real time, they've got to be online. So if they're not,
Yeah,
at
good
least
call
we get
there.
the benefit. Yeah, at least we
Yeah,
know
if
it'll
you
write
have
out
it
local.
enabled and the client has no internet connectivity, it will fall back to logging to disk and presenting the dialog asking the user to submit the error. Okay, so another change that we've made here, let's see if I can get it to display. So we've implemented an overlay that will display during form population and also tab activation. So if I click on another tab, you'll notice that you get a little transparent overlay and a loading indication. So this is put in place because we've run into situations where a user tries to activate a tab and the data in the tab is not completely populated, and then they interact with a button that then can cause some unexpected behaviors because data gets out of sync. And also in the initial activation of a tab, so when you just launch a form and you click on a tab that has not been activated already, sometimes that's a little slow. We have to populate all those forms, all those form components and controls. So now we at least have an indication that something is occurring. So when you activate a new tab, that will display for a longer period of time than when you go to a tab that's already been activated. So again, just providing a little better feedback to the user that something is occurring. Also, if you're activating a tab that is doing something host side that takes a little bit of time, like doing a selection on a contact log or something to that effect, you'll get that spinning indication until that data has been returned to the client. So I think that should hopefully improve some UI experience here, and also stop some of the errors that we're seeing with button interactions before the form is really ready for that button to be clicked. Okay, and then Andrew, I think I was going to hand it over to you to show a couple other updates that you've helped on here recently, if you're available.
Cool. Let me steal the screen.
Sir?
So I've been plugging in and helping Greg as able with some of these client bugs that have come in. One of them, which was recently reported, was some issues with sorting in selection grids. So this is a lookup that I know has it. So if I look for this part deletion lookup, there was a bug if I sorted this by the on-hand quantity, where it was doing a text sort. So in this case, before the negatives were not together, it would be sorted. So 1, 15, 17, 2, 20, 22, right? It was doing a text sort where now, we know this is numeric. The backend knows it's numeric. We're telling the client it's numeric. Hey, convert this to numeric data so we can sort and get our negatives at the start of an ascending list going up. So this 8 isn't intermixed with 800 and 8,000, right? So we're doing the sort correctly. That also applies to dates. Dates were suffering from the same kind of issue on sort. So that has been addressed. And then the more important one, at least in my opinion, was how we interact with control associations. So over here on this page, right? So this particular tab is a control association. So everything here is one line item. So if I click next, I move on and I'm in the second where I can add in new things. The problem is in control associations, if I'm in a value and I either use my mouse wheel or my scroll wheel to go up, right? I can navigate up and down through these associations, or I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard, right, to go back and forth. Problem was, if you did one of those two things, the after input events were not firing. So if I, change this price to 30, and then without pressing enter or clicking to another field, pressed on the down arrow key, my change would not have taken effect in a previous version. Now we can see, it kept the new price properly. The after input event fired correctly as it should have to the host side. So that's all taken care of. This could cause some data issues, right? You have a user entering stuff in, pressing the down arrow key, entering something in, pressing the down arrow key, and they may not have known to go back and look and be like, oh, my price changes didn't take effect. So this one was kind of a good one to get taken care of so that we are capturing what the users are inputting. And I think that's my 2. So back to Greg and your regularly scheduled programming.
All right. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight we're really making a push here in Q4 to focus on the .NET client and improve stability and user experience in that application. Starting with that exception logging so that we're receiving notification when customers are having problems with the application. So we're just trying to be much more proactive about that, get those problems taken care of so that everyone's experiencing the application in a much better situation. Any questions? Well, that's too easy. Mike, did you have any follow-ups?
No, sir.
All right. Well, we will keep it short and sweet then. Thanks again, everyone, for attending.